Imagine, just for a second, that you're driving down an open highway.
Right, late at night.
Yeah, exactly. Late at night, the road is, completely empty, and the sky above you is just perfectly clear.
Mm.
You look up through the windshield, past the headlights cutting through the dark, and you see this endless canopy of stars.
It's a great feeling.
It really is. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by just the hum of the engine, your brain does that thing it sometimes does.
Where it tries to solve the universe.
Yes. It asks the ultimate question, right? Like, how did all of this get here? How did the universe go from absolute, perfect, silent nothingness to, well, something?
It's the biggest question there is.
Totally. Not just dust and gas, but highways, cars, and, human minds capable of staring back up at the stars and asking that very question.
Yeah, consciousness itself.
Exactly. So today we are doing a deep dive into some truly wild source material. It's actually a raw, unedited transcript of a car ride.
A literal car ride.
Right?
Yeah.
Where a theorist named Arndt tries to answer that exact question.
It's a fascinating stuff.
It really is. The transcript covers a drive that took place in June 2026. They're driving from Lake Balaton in Hungary to Yebs in Austria.
That's a solid couple of hours.
Yeah, plenty of time to rethink physics. And during this drive, Arndt is engaged in this intense, highly technical debate with an AI assistant.
He's trying to map out a completely new theory of everything.
Right. And alongside this transcript, we're also looking at some supplementary notes. They detail something called the Busfo network, or Busfo-Geflecht in German.
And a concept labeled the theory of maximum relativity.
Exactly. So that's the roadmap for this deep dive.
And I think what makes the material from this drive so remarkable is really its raw, almost combative nature.
Yeah, the AI pushes back a lot.
It does. We're looking at a real-time brainstorming session. Yeah. You have a human trying to build a new physical paradigm from scratch, while the AI is constantly, relentlessly, trying to pull him back to establish physics.
It's like a tug of war.
Totally. And to properly explore this, we need to adopt a very specific mindset today. We have to look at this through the lens of a builder.
A builder. I like that.
Right, because in any field, but especially in theoretical physics, there are people who tear things down.
The critics.
Yeah, the critics who just poke holes in existing theories. And then there are builders. And the builders are far, far rarer.
Because it's risky.
Exactly. They're the ones willing to look foolish by proposing entirely new frameworks. Because, for roughly 100 years, mainstream science has largely given up on finding a true, fundamental theory of everything.
Right. They kind of just stopped looking.
Yeah, the prevailing attitude has been to settle for calculating outcomes using the existing models.
Which is safe, but it doesn't give you the big picture.
Precisely. So what Arndt proposes during this drive is the NKE theory.
Which stands for Nichts krustet was.
Right, translating from German to nothing crusts something.
Nothing crusts something. It's quite a visual.
It is. It's a radical attempt to bridge that ultimate gap between absolute nothingness and tangible reality. And he's doing it without relying on any of the pre-existing safety nets of mainstream scientific consensus.
Okay, so we're basically riding shotgun with a builder trying to reverse engineer the universe. But to understand why Arndt's NKE theory is so disruptive, we first have to establish the current rules of the road, right?
We have to look at the machinery of the standard model of physics.
Which is exactly where the car ride conversation begins. Arndt starts by probing the AI about supernovas and neutrinos.
He's looking at the death of a star.
Right, because when a massive star exhausts its nuclear fuel, it can no longer generate the outward pressure needed to fight its own immense gravity.
So it collapses.
Yeah, the core collapses in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
And that unleashes a shock wave that blows the outer layers of the star into space.
A supernova.
Exactly. But the detail Arndt zeroes in on, and this blew my mind, is the energy release.
The ratio is staggering.
Yeah, right, because 99% of the gravitational energy of that collapsing star isn't released as the blinding light we see in telescopes.
No, it's not.
And it isn't released as kinetic heat either. It is released purely as neutrinos.
Yeah, that specific statistic really forces us to rethink what a supernova actually is.
Because we see the flash of light and we think, oh, that is the explosion.
Exactly, but the light is essentially just a minor byproduct. The main event is, well, it's a neutrino bomb.
A neutrino bomb. Okay, so remind us, what exactly are neutrinos?
So neutrinos are elementary particles, but they are so tiny that they are almost massless.
Okay.
And they travel at virtually the speed of light.
Yep.
but crucially, they carry no electrical charge.
Meaning they don't really interact with stuff.
Right, they interact via the weak subatomic force. This means they are practically invisible to normal matter.
So they just pass through things.
Like ghosts. Right now, as you listen to this, billions of these neutrinos generated by our sun, or distant supernovas, are passing straight through your body.
That's a weird thought.
They're passing through the chair you're sitting in and all the way through the Earth itself without disturbing a single atom.
Just slipping right through.
Yep. And in the transcript, the AI brings up a defining historical moment to illustrate this, which is supernova 1987A.
Ah, yeah, famous event.
Very. When that star exploded in the Large Magellanic Cloud, specialized detectors on Earth registered a sudden spike in neutrinos.
Okay.
But the visible light from that massive explosion didn't arrive in our telescopes until several hours later.
Wait, several hours?
Yeah.
But that timing gap, I mean, that implies something incredible about the density of a collapsing star.
It really does.
Because if the light and the neutrinos are created at the exact same time in the core during the collapse, the light should get here at exactly the same time, right?
You think so?
But the core of a collapsing star is so unfathomably dense, I mean, just packed with iron atoms crushing into each other, that a photon of light simply cannot travel in a straight line.
It gets trapped.
Yeah, it bounces off atoms, gets absorbed, gets re-emitted. It's just ping-ponging around inside the star for hours before it finally reaches the surface and escapes into the vacuum of space.
But the neutrinos don't have that problem.
Right, because they don't interact with matter, they don't bounce. They shoot straight out from the core at nearly the speed of light, completely ignoring the trillions of tons of dense star stuff surrounding them.
So they get a massive head start.
Exactly, a head start across 168,000 light years of space.
Which is wild.
It is, but that creates a massive logical problem for us on Earth.
How so?
Well, if neutrinos pass through the densest collapsing star in the universe without hitting anything, and they pass through the Earth without hitting anything, how do we build a machine to detect them?
Right?
I mean, you can't build a wall to catch a ghost.
No, you definitely cannot catch them with a physical barrier.
So what do?
Instead, physicists have to rely on the law of large numbers and an incredibly precise trap.
Okay, tell me about the trap.
They build these massive cavernous tanks deep underground.
Like how deep?
Thousands of feet. They put them deep inside old mines, specifically to use the solid rock above as a filter.
Oh, to block out the noise.
Exactly. The rock blocks out other cosmic rays and background radiation, but the neutrinos, of course, just pass right through.
Right.
Inside these underground caverns, they construct tanks holding thousands of tons of extremely pure water.
Wow.
And sometimes they use a specific isotope called heavy water.
Heavy water. Okay.
Yeah, and the inner walls of these tanks are lined with thousands of photomultiplier tubes.
What are those?
They're these hypersensitive devices capable of detecting just a single photon of light.
That is incredibly precise.
It is, because the physicists are not actually trying to catch a neutrino.
What are they trying to do?
They're waiting for an incredibly rare statistical anomaly. Out of the trillions of neutrinos passing through the tank every second, there is like a 1 in a trillion chance that a neutrino will score an absolute direct hit on the nucleus of an atom in that water.
And the source material describes the result of that direct hit, right?
Yeah, it does.
And it completely reframes how we think about particle collisions. It's not like two billiard balls hitting each other and bouncing away.
Not at all.
When the neutrino actually strikes the water molecule, it creates this tiny, highly directional, cone-shaped flash of blue light.
It's called Cherenkov radiation.
Cherenkov radiation. To visualize this, I was thinking back to the ghost analogy.
Let's hear it.
It's like having a ghost that effortlessly walks through solid brick walls, floats through locked heavy oak doors, passes through the floorboards.
Right, completely intangible.
Yeah, but then, completely by chance, out of all the houses in the world, the ghost trips over one specific microscopic nail head sticking out of a floorboard.
Yeah, it produces a spark.
Exactly, a loud, visible spark. But my question is, why a flash of blue light, and why is it shaped like a cone pointing in a specific direction?
Well, the mechanism the AI outlines in the text relies on a process called elastic scattering.
Elastic scattering.
Yeah. The neutrino doesn't just bump the atom. It interacts specifically with an electron.
Okay.
It transfers a significant portion of its kinetic energy and momentum directly to that electron, effectively kicking it forward in almost the exact same trajectory the neutrino is traveling.
So it punts the electron.
Basically, yes. Now, this electron is suddenly moving incredibly fast.
How fast?
In fact, it is moving faster than the speed of light can travel through that specific medium of water.
Wait, I thought nothing could travel faster than light.
Right, we often hear that, but that rule applies strictly to a perfect vacuum.
Oh, I see.
Light actually slows down when it passes through water. So when this super-energized electron breaks the local light barrier in the tank, it creates an optical equivalent of a sonic boom.
An optical sonic boom. That is such a cool phrase.
It's accurate, though. Just as a jet breaking the sound barrier compresses sound waves into a cone of pressure trailing behind it, this electron compresses electromagnetic waves into a cone of blue light.
Ah, so that's the blue cone.
Exactly. And the photomultiplier tubes detect that blue cone. And because of its precise shape and angle, physicists can trace the exact trajectory backward.
To see where it came from.
Yeah, to see exactly where in the universe that specific neutrino originated.
So you are basically looking at the optical sonic boom of a kicked electron to map the trajectory of an invisible ghost.
It is a stunning piece of detective work, really.
It's amazing. But the conversation in the car takes this fascinating hyper-specific detour right around here.
Yeah, it gets very technical.
Aren't it? Pushes the AI on the composition of the liquid in these detectors, specifically this heavy water stuff.
Which is important context.
Right. So normal water, the stuff flowing from our taps, is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom.
Simple enough.
But heavy water is D2O. The D stands for deuterium. And Arndt and the AI get into this highly granular mathematical debate trying to calculate the exact mass difference between normal water and heavy water.
It seems like a minor tangent at first.
It does, but it reveals the incredible, almost obsessive precision of the standard model.
Absolutely. The atomic math here is essential to understanding the foundation Arndt is eventually trying to replace.
Right.
To really grasp heavy water, we have to look at the isotopes of hydrogen. Normal hydrogen, scientifically referred to as protium, has the simplest nucleus in the universe.
It's just 1 proton, right?
Exactly. It consists of exactly 1 proton. It has no neutrons. That single proton gives it an atomic mass of roughly 1.
Okay, got it.
Now, deuterium is an isotope. It still chemically behaves exactly like hydrogen because it still has 1 proton and 1 electron, meaning it bonds with oxygen in the exact same way to make water.
So it's still water.
Still water. But the nucleus of deuterium contains 1 proton and 1 neutron.
Ah, the extra neutron.
Exactly. That extra neutron doubles the mass of the nucleus. The atomic mass becomes roughly 2.
Okay, so let's actually do the arithmetic they do in the car, because the AI actually gets it wrong at first.
It does, which is funny.
So in normal water, H2O, you have 2 normal hydrogen atoms. That gives you a mass of 2.
Right.
Then you add the oxygen atom. Oxygen has an atomic number of 8, meaning 8 protons, but its nucleus is packed with 8 neutrons as well, giving it an atomic mass of 16.
Yep.
So normal water is 2 from the hydrogen plus 16 from the oxygen for a total atomic mass of roughly 18.
Perfect.
Now, heavy water, D2O, uses 2 deuterium atoms. Each has a mass of roughly 2, giving us 4. Add the oxygen 16, and heavy water has a total mass of roughly 20.
Right, 18 versus 20.
And in the transcript, the AI looks at those numbers, 18 and 20, and casually concludes that heavy water is about 10% heavier.
Which is a very LLM thing to do, just round it off.
Really. But Arndt immediately jumps on this. He stops the AI and corrects the math, pointing out that 20 is not exactly a 10% increase over 18.
Arndt forces the AI to look at the raw decimals because the universe does not operate on clean, round numbers.
It really doesn't.
The mass does not increase by 10%. It increases by exactly 11.2%.
11.
Yes, and the reason for this specific decimal points directly to the subatomic building blocks. Protons and neutrons do not weigh exactly 1.
Oh, they don't.
No, a proton has a mass of approximately 1.00078 atomic mass units.
Okay.
A neutron is slightly heavier, sitting at roughly 1.0087 atomic mass units.
Just a tiny bit heavier.
Right. So when you strip away the rounding and calculate the exact mass of the isotopes, normal water comes out to roughly 18.015 atomic mass units. Heavy water calculates out to roughly 20.028 atomic mass units.
Wow, look at those decimals.
And the precise difference between those two highly specific numbers is 11.2%.
So the AI was relying on a generalized summary.
It was, but Arndt demanded the foundational reality.
And that precision doesn't stop with atomic mass. As they dig deeper into the nuclei of atoms, the AI introduces a concept used in the standard model called magic numbers.
Magic numbers, I love that term.
Me too. The specific numbers are 2, 8, 20, 28, 50, 82, and 126. According to the AI, if an atomic nucleus contains exactly that number of protons or exactly that number of neutrons, the atom exhibits extraordinary stability.
It's just locked in.
Yeah, it's much less likely to undergo radioactive decay. And the AI explains that the standard model maps this out by treating the atomic nucleus as a three-dimensional harmonic oscillator.
Right, the protons and neutrons aren't just clumped together randomly.
Exactly. They arrange themselves into distinct energy shells, very similar to how electrons orbit the nucleus in specific shells.
Yeah.
So when a nucleus hits one of these magic numbers, it means a shell is perfectly, completely full. It is mathematically balanced.
And the harmonic oscillator model is a perfect illustration of the current era of physics. I mean, we can calculate the 11.2% mass difference of heavy water down to the decimal.
We can?
We can precisely predict the geometric angle of a Cherenkov light cone produced by elastic scattering.
Right.
We can use 3D harmonic math to perfectly predict the magic numbers of nuclear stability.
It's incredible math.
The standard model is, without question, an absolute triumph of mathematical description. We have constructed an incredibly precise navigation system that tells us exactly how reality behaves under almost every conceivable circumstance. We know what the universe is doing.
Yes.
We can map the outcomes of complex interactions with staggering accuracy.
And this is the big but, knowing what reality is doing is not the same as knowing why it is doing it.
Not at all.
I mean, if you hand me a map of a city, I can navigate the streets perfectly. I can tell you exactly how long it takes to get from point A to point B.
Sure.
But the map does not tell me why the city was built there in the first place. It doesn't tell me what the concrete is made of or who poured it. The map is just a description.
I make a great analogy.
Thanks. And this realization is really the crucial pivot point in the car ride. Arndt is entirely unsatisfied with the map.
He wants the concrete.
Right. The standard model describes the 3D harmonic oscillator of the nucleus, but it cannot tell him what a proton actually is at the absolute foundational level.
It just tells him how it acts.
Exactly. So to understand why Arndt feels he has to completely abandon the standard model to find his theory of everything, we have to look backward. We have to look at the historical roadblock that created this descriptive map in the first place.
This is so important. To contextualize Arndt's frustration, we really must examine a massive philosophical shift that occurred roughly 100 years ago.
In the 1920s, right?
Yes, the 1920s. This shift is broadly associated with the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, prior to this era, the grand tradition of physics, from Isaac Newton all the way up through the early work of Albert Einstein, was driven by the desire to uncover a clockwork universe.
A physical machine.
Exactly. The underlying belief was that if you built a powerful enough microscope, if you looked closely enough at reality, you would eventually find the actual physical gears and springs making the universe tick. You would find the fundamental physical machinery.
But then physicists started looking at the quantum level, and the gears just disappeared.
They completely vanished.
Yeah, they found particles that behaved like solid objects one moment and acted like rippling waves the next, depending entirely on how they were measured.
The wave-particle duality.
Right. They found mathematical probabilities instead of hard locations. The deeper they looked, the less physical reality seemed to be. It became incredibly abstract and deeply counterintuitive.
Very much so.
So faced with this bizarre, contradictory quantum realm, the leading minds of the time, figures heavily influenced by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, essentially made a philosophical compromise.
They did. They codified a boundary for human inquiry.
A boundary.
Yeah. The prevailing sentiment became that it is fundamentally meaningless to ask what a quantum particle is or what it is doing when you are not actively measuring it.
Basically, don't ask.
Right. They argued that the equations of quantum mechanics should not be viewed as a literal description of hidden physical machinery.
So what are they then?
Instead, the equations are merely tools to predict the probabilities of macroscopic observations. Physics, under this paradigm, surrendered the pursuit of underlying physical reality.
They gave up the why.
Exactly. The discipline redefined its core mission. It decided it should solely concern itself with the results of experiments and the perfection of the mathematics used to predict those results.
Which ushered in what is often colloquially referred to as the shut up and calculate era of physics.
To test and calculate, yeah.
Imagine realizing that you have absolutely no idea how the internal combustion engine of your car actually works. You open the hood, and instead of pistons and valves, you just see a blurry cloud of mathematical probabilities.
Sounds terrifying.
Right. But you notice that every time you press the gas pedal, the car reliably moves forward at a predictable speed.
So you just trust the pedal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Copenhagen approach essentially says, close the hood, stop worrying about the blurry cloud, and just focus on building better, more precise gas pedals.
And that's what we've done for 100 years.
But Arndt, sitting in his car in 2026, refuses to keep the hood closed. He wants to know what the engine is made of. He is trying to build a new theory of everything.
And this is where the dynamic between him and the AI, which he calls Grok in the transcript, becomes highly antagonistic.
Oh, yeah. The transcript serves as a brilliant case study of the friction between a human builder and a consensus machine.
Because we have to look at the architecture of large language models to understand why the AI fights him.
Right. How is it built?
An LLM is, by definition, trained on the entirety of human knowledge up to the present day. Its training data, its safety guardrails, its core algorithms, they are all explicitly designed to reflect, summarize, and protect the established mainstream consensus.
It's literally programmed to be the mainstream.
Exactly. The AI is a statistical mirror of the past 100 years of shut up and calculate physics.
So when Arndt comes in with NKE...
Right. When Arndt introduces a completely novel, paradigm-shifting idea, foundational concept that contradicts the established textbooks, the AI's inherent programming interprets this as an error.
It thinks he's hallucinating.
Basically, it relentlessly tries to pull the conversation back to the safety of the standard model. It constantly interrogates Arndt, demanding, how does this fit with the established view on supernovas? Or, where is the mathematical proof for this within current quantum field theory?
And the frustration in Arndt's voice is palpable in the text. At one point, he essentially yells at the AI, accusing it of dragging him into the black hole of the mainstream.
He's getting so mad.
Yeah. And he points out a glaring hypocrisy in the scientific establishment. The physics community has lived comfortably for decades with massive, gaping holes in their understanding.
Huge holes.
I mean, they cannot explain what dark matter is. They cannot integrate gravity into quantum mechanics. They cannot explain why the universe is accelerating.
Right, these are massive unknowns.
Yet, they accept these massive mysteries as works in progress. But when Arndt tries to brainstorm a completely new foundation, the AI demands that he perfectly explain the entire universe with flawless mathematical proofs on day 3 of his new theory.
It's a double standard.
Completely. The AI acts as a digital anchor. It highlights how our most advanced tools are programmed to echo what is already considered true, inherently suppressing genuine radical innovation.
Yeah. And the author notes that clinging to these old standpoints is a proven dead end when you're attempting to formulate a theory of everything.
Why is it a dead end?
Because if you are building a toe, you cannot compromise with the standard model. The reasoning is purely logical. A true theory of everything cannot, by definition, rely on any preconditions.
No preconditions.
Right. If your theory starts by saying, assume there is a fabric of space-time, or assume there is a one-dimensional vibrating string, you have already failed.
Because you're assuming something already exists.
Exactly. The immediate logical question will always be, where did the space-time come from? What is the string made of, and who put it there?
So you have to go further back.
A genuine toe must explain the very first link in the chain. It must start from an absolute featureless state of nothing and meticulously explain the physical and logical mechanism that allows something to emerge.
That is a tall order.
Furthermore, the source argues that a true toe cannot be proven in the traditional sense of a lab experiment.
Why not?
Because any lab experiment relies on the very tools and concepts, like mass, charge, and space, that the theory is trying to explain the origin of. A toe must be proven by its logical emergence from a single point.
Man, that requirement creates an immense intellectual wall.
It does.
I mean, if science officially stopped looking for the fundamental why a century ago, and if our supercomputers are architecturally biased against unprecedented ideas, how do you even start?
That's the builder's dilemma.
Right. If you cannot assume space exists and you cannot assume energy exists, how do you logically bridge the gap between absolute perfect nothingness and the physical universe? Where do you lay the first brick if there are no bricks and nowhere to put them?
The answer the text provides is philosophically severe. To build a universe from scratch, you must start before physics exists.
Before physics?
Yes. You have to abandon physical concepts entirely and enter what Arndt calls the pre-physical realm. You must examine the pure philosophy of absolute nothingness.
Okay.
This is the precise entrance point to the NKE theory.
So we are about to cross that boundary. We are diving into NKE, nix kryssa etwas, nothing crust something.
Here we go.
The entire architecture of this theory rests on a single foundational mechanism called the Busvo process.
Right.
Now, the text doesn't explicitly break down the linguistic etymology of the word busvo. It just uses it as the given name for this foundational network, but it spends immense effort describing its mechanics.
It's the core of everything.
Yeah. So to grasp the Busvo process, you have to let go of every preconception you have about physical particles or empty space.
You really do. You must clear your mind of the concept of an empty room waiting to be filled. Imagine a pure, absolute void.
Just nothing.
Nothing. There's no dimension, no geometry, no energy, no time. The NKE theory proposes the Busco process as the absolute smallest conceivable event that can occur within that perfect void.
Okay, what is the event?
It describes it as an infinitely thin virtual separation occurring within the nothing. It is a momentary, localized dividing line where the nothingness briefly pulls apart.
A nothingness pulls apart.
Yes. But here is the critical spark, the mechanism that ignites reality. When that infinitely thin virtual separation tries to close back up and heal, it does not recombine perfectly.
It leaves a scar.
Exactly. It leaves a microscopic, fundamental difference.
A difference that sounds like a contradiction. How can there be a difference if there is absolutely nothing there to be different from? It's not like ripping a piece of paper where you have two jagged edges.
That's the tricky part to wrap your head around. It is not a difference of material. It is a difference of state.
A difference of state.
Right. Before the virtual separation occurred, the void possessed perfect, featureless uniformity. It was a single, unbroken state. But because the separation failed to heal perfectly, that absolute uniformity is permanently broken.
So it's no longer uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is now an irregularity. This singular microscopic failure to perfectly recombine introduces the very first fundamental concept to reality.
Time.
Time.
How does it introduce time?
Because before the separation, there was only the eternal void. Now there is a distinct before the separation and an after the separation. Time is born entirely from this difference of state.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
And as these virtual separations continue to occur, as these tiny differences accumulate, overlap, and interact, they begin to form an underlying web of irregularity. They form structure.
Okay.
And from the interactions of this accumulated structure, the concept of space eventually emerges.
So space isn't just an empty box.
No, space is not a pre-existing container that the universe expands into.
Yeah.
In NKE, space is a byproduct. It is the emergent geometry of this structure interacting with itself.
So NKE is claiming that at the absolute bedrock of reality, there are no particles, there are no tiny solid billiard balls of matter. Everything we perceive in the universe, the heavy water in the neutrino detectors, the collapsing iron core of a star, the neurons in our brains, is entirely composed of structure interacting with structure within the nothingness.
It boggles the mind, but yes.
To wrap my head around this, I think about the ocean. We look at a wave crashing on the beach and we see a distinct, powerful object.
Right. It hits you, it has force.
Exactly. But the wave isn't a solid object. The ocean isn't a bucket filled with billions of individual wave particles bouncing off each other. Mm-hmm. The wave is just energy, a structure of movement traveling through a medium. Mm-hmm. It is waves interacting with other waves, creating peaks and troughs. In the NKE theory, our bodies and the stars are just incredibly complex, highly stable standing waves in the ocean of this continuous Busvo network.
The ocean analogy captures the essence of emergent structure perfectly. And during the drive, the AI actually acknowledges a fascinating parallel to established physics.
Oh, it finally agrees on something.
Well, it points out that NKE's reliance on interacting structure sounds remarkably similar to string theory.
Ah, string theory.
Yeah, string theory, which has been a dominant candidate for a toe for decades, also rejects the idea of hard, point-like particles. It posits that the fundamental ingredients of the universe are unimaginably tiny, one-dimensional strings vibrating at different resonant frequencies.
Right, like guitar strings.
Exactly. The frequency of the vibration determines whether the string manifests as an electron, a quark, or a photon. However, Arndt uses this comparison to highlight the exact philosophical failure of string theory.
How so? Because string theory sounds like it gets to the same destination.
It reaches a similar destination, but it takes a shortcut that invalidates it as a true TOE.
What's the shortcut?
String theory is a top-down mathematical calculation. It starts in the middle of the story. It explicitly assumes that the vibrating strings already exist, and it assumes they exist within a complex, multidimensional framework of space-time.
So it has those preconditions we talked about.
Exactly. It completely fails to explain where the strings came from, what they are made of, or how the space-time they vibrate in was generated. NKE, by contrast, provides the bottom-up philosophical foundation.
Because it starts from nothing.
Right. It doesn't assume the strings exist. It explains the exact mechanical process, the virtual separation of the void, that generates the vibrating structure from absolute nothingness. NKE provides the origin story that string theory is missing.
I understand the philosophical elegance of starting from nothing. I really do. But physically, I have a massive problem with the scale.
Okay, lay it out.
You are taking a microscopic, infinitely thin virtual scratch in a pre-physical void, and you are trying to scale that up to account for the violent, massive expansion of a galaxy.
It's a big jump.
It is. If everything is just this tiny busfo process happening, how do we end up with the explosive scale of the cosmos we observe today?
You have pinpointed the exact hurdle Arndt has to clear next. To scale the busfo process up to the size of a galaxy, he cannot use the established cosmological models.
So he has to throw out the map again.
He has to completely rewrite the history of the universe. He must abandon the Big Bang. This brings us directly to the mechanism of continuous creation and the major logical contradiction he faces in the car.
Okay, let's dig into that. Standard cosmology tells us the universe started 13.8 billion years ago in a single, infinitely dense, infinitely hot singularity that exploded outward the Big Bang.
Right.
Standard physics tells us that the heavy elements, the iron and gold, were forged billions of years later in the hearts of supernovas. But Arndt's NKE theory rejects both the singularity and the supernova dependency.
It has to, because of the busfo process.
Right. In the NKE framework, the busfo process isn't a one-time ancient event. It is a continuous self-reinforcing engine. It is constantly creating new structure, linearly, everywhere, at all times.
And this continuous creation model triggers a severe debate with the AI.
Grok was not having it.
Not at all. The AI hits Arndt with a seemingly insurmountable cosmic contradiction based on hard observational data.
What's the data?
We can look up at the sky and measure the cosmic microwave background radiation, the CMB.
The static from the Big Bang.
Essentially, yes. It's this faint residual thermal glow spread across the entire observable universe. When we measure the CMB, we find that it has an incredibly uniform temperature of roughly 2.725 Kelvin in every single direction we look.
Right, it's very smooth.
Exactly. This uniformity proves that the universe is expanding evenly, uniformly, everywhere. But Arndt has just claimed that the busfo process creates structure, and that this process is self-reinforcing.
Okay.
A self-reinforcing process means that the presence of existing structure accelerates the creation of more structure.
Oh, which creates the paradox.
Yep.
If the expansion of the universe is driven by the busfo process, and the busfo process is stronger in areas where there is already a massive amount of structure, like the center of a dense galaxy cluster, then the expansion of the universe should be violently uneven.
It should be very clumpy.
Right. Galaxies should be boiling outward, expanding at a massive rate, while the empty voids between galaxies should be expanding very slowly. But the CMB proves that isn't happening. The expansion is uniform.
So the AI basically corners him and says, your logic is flawed. You cannot have a uniform expansion driven by a locally variable, self-reinforcing process.
And the transcript shows Arndt getting highly defensive at this point.
Yeah, he's feeling the heat.
I mean, he is attempting to organically grow a universe in his mind while navigating a highway, and the AI is ruthlessly applying the hardest observational constraints in cosmology.
Stressful drive.
But the pressure forces a massive conceptual breakthrough. Arndt realizes that trying to explain everything with a single monolithic action is impossible.
He realizes he must divide the mechanism.
He separates the process into two distinct interactive entities to resolve the contradiction.
This is the divide and conquer approach.
Walk me through the separation. How does he split the process?
First, he defines the virgin busfo process.
Virgin busfo.
Yes. This is the pure foundational mechanism occurring constantly in the pre-physical void. Because it is happening in the virgin void, it is completely uninfluenced by any pre-existing structure.
So it's just pure expansion.
Exactly. Therefore, it happens at a constant uniform rate everywhere. This pure virgin process is responsible for the uniform creation of the baseline spatial geometry. It provides the smooth, even expansion that perfectly aligns with the uniform 2.725 Kelvin temperature of the cosmic microwave background.
Okay, so the Virgin Busfo process is the engine of uniform cosmic expansion.
Spot on.
Okay, so the virgin void gives us the even expansion. But the universe isn't a virgin void. It is filled with dense galaxies and stars. What happens to the self-reinforcing part of the theory?
That is the second entity. He introduces the Mitzi effect,
The effect.
which translates as the pull-along effect.
The pull-along effect.
Yes. The Mitzi effect is a localized secondary feedback loop. When the continuous uniform busful process occurs in an area where highly dense structure already exists, that massive existing structure exerts an influence.
It tugs on it.
Exactly. It physically pulls on the new structure that is being formulated. So the underlying canvas of the universe is expanding uniformly everywhere via the virgin process, but locally, the existing structure is pulling the newly generated geometry back toward itself.
That resolves the paradox beautifully.
It really does.
It's like baking bread.
Bread.
Yeah, think about it. The virgin busfo process is the yeast throughout the dough. It causes the entire loaf to expand evenly in the oven.
Okay.
But the Mitzi effect is like a dense cluster of raisins baked into the dough. The raisins aren't generating the expansion, the yeast is doing that, but the dense, sticky raisins are interacting with the dough around them, locally pulling on it, creating dense pockets within the overall uniform expansion.
The raisin bread universe. I like it.
Right. And this specific realization, separating the pure expansion from the localized pull, allows Arndt to do something incredibly ambitious.
He redefines the forces.
Yes. He uses the Mitzi effect to completely redefine the four fundamental forces of nature using absolutely nothing but interacting structure.
It is a masterclass in theoretical simplification. Because in standard physics, we treat gravity, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, and the strong nuclear force as separate, almost magical fields governed by different rules and different exchange particles.
They're all in their own little boxes.
Yeah. NKE discards all of that. Let's look at how it redefines them. First, gravity.
Okay.
In the NKE model, gravity is not a warping of space-time fabric, and it is not mediated by an undiscovered graviton particle. Gravity is simply the macro-scale manifestation of the Mitzi effect.
It's just the pull along.
Exactly. It is the dense, existing structure of a planet interacting with the continuous underlying busfo process, dragging the newly formed structural geometry toward itself.
What about electromagnetism? How do you get magnetic attraction and repulsion without positively or negatively charged particles?
You get it through resonance. Electromagnetism is redefined simply as structure interacting directly with other structure. Remember, in this theory, matter is a complex standing wave. If the structural vibration of one wave perfectly resonates with another wave, they harmonize and attract.
If they don't.
If their structural vibrations clash, they create interference and repel. Charge is just a description of structural compatibility.
Which leaves the nuclear forces, which are much harder to conceptualize without physical particles. I mean, how do you explain the weak nuclear force, which dictates radioactive decay, or the strong nuclear force, which binds the atomic nucleus together?
NKE redefines both nuclear forces purely as measures of structural stability.
Stability.
The weak nuclear force is no longer a distinct field. It is simply the metric of how stable a specific structural resonance is over time. If a complex wave structure is slightly dissonant, if it isn't perfectly balanced, it will eventually lose its cohesion and unfold.
So it falls apart.
And that unfolding is what we observe as radioactive decay.
Wow. And the strong force.
The strong nuclear force is redefined as the specific threshold of external energy required to force a perfectly balanced, highly stable resonant structure to break its harmony and transition into a different state.
So all four forces are just different descriptions of vibrating structure trying to maintain or change its shape.
Exactly.
The elegance of that is striking. But if gravity is literally just this localized Mitzi effect, this pull-along effect of dense structure, what are the boundaries of this rule?
What do you mean?
Well, every physical rule has a maximum and a minimum. Where's the zero gravity and where's the maximum gravity in this universe?
This is explicitly addressed in the supplementary notes titled The Theory of Maximum Relativity.
Right.
Arndt establishes the absolute extremes to define the boundaries of his universe. The absolute minimum, a true zero Mitzi effect, can only exist in a hypothetical pocket of purely virgin busful network.
A place where absolutely no structural difference has accumulated yet.
Right. It is pure Conversely, the absolute maximum current Mitzi effect, the most violent, powerful pull of structure on structure currently possible in the universe exists precisely where we started our journey.
Wait, in the supernova?
In the impossibly dense, chaotic interior of a collapsing supernova core. That core represents the maximum density of interacting structure, and therefore the maximum localized pull.
That creates a beautifully symmetrical universe. I mean, from the pure, unresisting expansion of the empty void to the absolute maximum localized drag inside a dying star.
It ties it all together.
It's a stunning philosophical framework. But here is where the rubber meets the road.
Math.
Yes, math. Philosophy is just poetry until you can calculate it. Physics requires math. If Arndt claims that an atom is not a collection of particles, but a complex 3D standing wave of pre-physical structure, how on earth does he plan to prove it?
Yeah, that's the big question.
You can't put a pre-physical void under a microscope. How do you map the math of a standing wave?
He plans to prove it by mapping the harmonics of reality. In the final segment of their discussion, Arndt outlines a mathematical pathway to validate the NKE theory. If the universe is fundamentally built of structure interacting with structure, then the most stable, permanent forms of structure, the elements that make up our universe, must behave exactly like standing waves.
Okay.
And to analyze a complex wave, you don't use a microscope. You use a mathematical tool known as a Fourier transformation.
A Fourier transformation. Now, that is the exact math audio engineers use every day.
Yep.
If you play a complex, messy chord on a piano, the sound wave hitting your ear is a tangled mess of frequencies. An audio engineer uses a Fourier transform to mathematically dissect that messy wave, breaking it down into its individual, pure, fundamental frequency notes.
Exactly.
But Arndt isn't analyzing an audio recording of a piano. He proposes applying a three-dimensional Fourier transformation to the 95 naturally occurring elements on the periodic table.
It is a completely revolutionary application of the math. Standard physics looks at an atom of gold and sees a nucleus of exactly 79 protons and 118 neutrons, orbited by 79 electrons. Arndt says we must discard the particles. He wants to apply a 3D Fourier transform to gold, treating the entire atom as an incredibly complex, stable, three-dimensional chord of vibrating structural geometry.
A chord of geometry.
These fundamental waves are locked in a state of constant, perfect, constructive, and destructive interference. It is the exact same principle as noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, I love that comparison.
The headphones detect incoming ambient noise and instantly generate an exact inverted sound wave. The two waves collide, destructively interfere, and perfectly cancel each other out, leaving a stable zone of silence.
So the elements are like zones of silence.
In the NKE theory, the 95 natural elements are the specific configurations of waves that have perfectly canceled out their own destructive instabilities. They have achieved a permanent, perfectly balanced harmonic resonance. They are the stable chords of matter.
Let's trace how those chords theoretically evolve, because it provides a linear history of the universe that doesn't require a Big Bang singularity.
Okay, the evolution.
In the NKE timeline, the initial busfo process occurs in the pre-physical void. Over immense stretches of emergent time, the accumulating differences form the simplest, most primitive baseline structure.
Right.
This primitive structure is what we currently detect as dark matter, a structural geometry so basic and broad that it barely interacts with complex waves like visible light.
So dark matter comes first.
Yes. But as the continuous busfo process acts upon this dark matter, the structure folds. It condenses, and tuning forks itself into the very first, simplest, stable resonances.
And this is where our ghost particles, the neutrinos, enter the picture.
Exactly. They are the simplest stable notes plucked from the void.
And because the process is continuous and self-reinforcing, the evolution is linear. Those simple neutrino notes interact and combine. They harmonize to form slightly more complex, stable chords.
They build on each other.
The structural folds become denser, eventually creating the precise 3D resonance we identify as a proton. The protons interact with electron resonances to form the chord of hydrogen. And over unfathomable amounts of time, this continuous compounding structural resonance builds up, harmonic layer by harmonic layer, eventually structuring itself into the massive, complex chords of the heavy elements.
It is a linear symphony of geometry tuning itself out of the static of the pure void.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
I follow the linear evolution. It paints an incredible picture, but mathematically.
No.
Applying a 3D Fourier transform to a single gold atom. If a gold atom is a resonant structure built of interacting protons, which are built of interacting simple structures, which are built from the pre-physical void.
It's a lot of data.
The sheer amount of computational data required to map the total structural geometry of one single atom of gold would crash any supercomputer on Earth. It is an infinite regress of structural data.
It is.
How can any builder, let alone one guy in a car, actually calculate that without being paralyzed by the cognitive load?
Well, if you attempt to calculate the entire stack of reality at once, you will absolutely fail. The computational load is infinite.
Right.
But the final note from the source text provides the methodological solution. It returns to the principle of divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer.
To mathematically analyze the NKE theory and the theory of maximum relativity, you must ruthlessly compartmentalize your calculations.
How so?
You cannot carry the entire philosophical weight of the Virgin-Busfo process into the equation when you are trying to calculate the Fourier transform of a gold atom. You have to isolate the phenomenon.
Start small.
Start at the absolute bottom. You dedicate all your computational power to mapping the fundamental 3D resonance of a single, simple neutrino. You solve the math for that one tiny stable chord.
Oh, and then you use that.
Once you have mathematically proven the neutrino structure, you lock it in. You treat the neutrino as a solved foundational unit, and you use it to work upward to map the proton. You deliberately break the infinite complexity of emergent reality into finite, discrete, mathematically solvable steps.
Which makes it manageable.
It is the only practical way a human mind can map an infinite universe.
We have traveled an immense conceptual distance today. I mean, we started deep underground in a tank of pure heavy water, analyzing the exact 11.2% mass difference of an isotope, just to watch the eerie blue sonic boom of Cherenkov radiation caused by a ghost particle from a dying star.
We really covered a lot of ground.
We explored the historical philosophical compromise of the Copenhagen interpretation, where the scientific world decided to close the hood and just shut up and calculate.
The 100-year halt.
Yeah. We watched a human builder fight against the guardrails of an AI consensus machine. And finally, we followed that builder out into the pre-physical void, exploring the NKE theory, where gravity, nuclear decay, and the very fabric of space are not fundamental, but emerge solely from the resonant intersecting structures of the continuous Busfo process.
It is a demanding, rigorous journey from the established rules of the standard model to the absolute bleeding edge of theoretical physics.
It really is.
But the technical details, the harmonic oscillators, the elastic scattering, the Fourier transforms, they all serve a larger narrative. The core takeaway from this raw transcript is the indispensable value of the builder.
We need them.
We do. Our modern world functions perfectly well on calculated models. We use the standard model to build our technology, our GPS, and our nuclear reactors. But the grand pursuit of knowledge stagnates without the dreamers.
So true.
We desperately need the rare minds who are willing to ignore the safety of the consensus, who are willing to confront the absolute void, and who insist on asking why the universe exists at all, rather than merely accepting how it predictably behaves.
It takes immense intellectual courage to abandon the safety of the map and try to survey the underlying territory yourself. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought derived from Ernst's journey.
Let's hear it.
The next time you are driving down an empty highway at night, look up past the windshield at the endless canopy of stars. Consider this. If the NKE theory is even partially correct, if the physical universe doesn't actually exist in the way we think it does.
If it's all just structure.
Yeah. If there are absolutely no solid particles, no hard building blocks of matter, but only a vast pre-physical void filled with complex geometry interacting with complex geometry, what does that make you? Are you, sitting in your car, simply a highly complex, self-aware symphony of three-dimensional standing waves?
A chord holding its shape.
Exactly. Are you just a mathematically perfect chord, temporarily holding your resonant shape against the infinite silent expansion of the Busfo process? Thank you for taking this deep dive. Keep asking why.